but I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before the noon. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I like to be away in my patience. Stay up, I feel so outdated. How can we look the other way? Sun is out, but the sky is gray. What would happen if I took a chance? It's always hard at first glance. I don't wanna, but I know I gotta do it. The truth is hard to swallow. I think I'll chew it. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew educated, but I'm so frustrated. How much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. Educated, but I'm so frustrated. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew educated, but I'm so frustrated. How much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. Educated, but I'm so frustrated. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Basics to Starting the Business, or the Basics to Starting Your Business. This is part two of our conversation that we had 2 weeks ago with part one with Coach Jean. So some of the things we covered in part one, just to recap, we talked about before setting up an entity or anything to do your market research. We also discussed visiting NAICS.com and begin the search of your own industry by name, and then also clicking on your NAICS code that fits your main industry and sub-industry and see what top gross revenue companies are there. So it's a cheat code right there. So it's just like whatever those companies that are in your industries, research those companies, see what they're doing correctly, and then try to mimic those things with your own business. We discussed visiting fpds.gov and usaspending.gov to research your industry by name. We also discussed finding the top 5 to 7 companies that do what you do. And then we also discussed locating your local SBA office, your local Chamber of Commerce, local government procurement offices, and getting a SCORE mentor, and then also attend Apex Accelerator meetings. We also talked about go to Biz Buy Sell and see what businesses are for sale in your market. But of course, the emphasis was getting a SCORE mentor and tapping into your local city markets to get those resources, such as the SBA office. So now in part two, we are going to discuss actually setting up your entity. So I'm glad to have the CEO of Austin Business Strategies and Bank Ready, Coach John Austin again. Coach, how are you doing today?
We good, man. We good, man. It's a good day. Been a good week and a crazy week actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Loving where things are going and getting my notes together for the day because today should be interesting.
absolutely. And this is definitely one of those topics I'm looking forward to because, we've already put all those tips and strategies in place, and now it's actually time to go put this business together, put the building blocks of this business together. So, what I would like to concentrate and focus on, I would like to spend a great deal of time of the different entities, like go into what those entities are, go into the pros and cons of each, just to dispel any myths and anything that are, out there. But with me personally, because, from the intro, I told y'all bits and pieces of my own story was going to come out with each episode. The first 10 years of me being in business, I started as a DBA, and I had that DBA and operated under a DBA for 10 years. So let's just start with that, Coach. DBAs, what are the pros and cons of DBAs?
So if you're gonna do, sorry, if you're gonna do a DBA, doing business as Colin Hartman, John Austin, doing business as, and you pick a name and you file it with, like your county clerk office, if I'm not mistaken. And that name is good for 10 years, 17 years, depending on the county
10
or
years.
parish if you're in Louisiana. Um, it's good to lock up a name locally. Okay, I get it. I get it. Uh, but you're really not. I don't really see any benefit outside of you can put a name together and you can open up an account with that name as a registered name. Um, or if you're looking at branding that name, you can maybe show some credence there. Shout out to being old school. I think I had a DBA 2005, long time ago. And before I knew anything about trademark patents, things of that nature, he's got the name locked in, and you kind of kept it moving to make sure your name wasn't close to somebody else's name. So I get that, especially if you're going to be in the business streets, locally, things of that nature. You want to make sure that your name doesn't touch somebody else's, and you're, Hartman Incorporated or Hartman Inc. And someone else is the same last name, same everything. So you could be potentially yellow pages. If you Google
Right.
the names a day, you could cross those things. Just like Dove chocolate and Dove soap, they coexist. You just have to make sure that you're filing accordingly under the right classes when you put a trademark that name. So yeah,
So,
man, I don't yeah. Other than that, it's not a big use right now.
right. So DBA, doing business as is what it stands for, but you would say it's good for like a placeholder, like reserving or holding that name for when you are, doing bigger things. Let's just say down the road, or not even down the road, just out the gate. You want it's just pretty much just holding that name, make sure nobody takes that name. So when you do LLC or S corp or something like that, you don't have to worry about somebody else having that name.
Yeah, and I would add one little piece to it. So if you're going to, like, a lot of folks that have a brand name or they want to trademark that name, and that's the first statement where you're putting that name into the marketplace. So if someone did come along and say, "Oh, that's my name. I've been using it since this time," and say, "Well, no, I got the DBA. I've been using it in my branding and marketing and emails, blah blah blah. It's been in use, right? I've been hashtagging it, whatever. So that does give you some legal standing when it comes to using that name, especially you plan on branding it. I think most of us should use some form of fashion of our own names, incorporate our own names. That's another part of this conversation. But that's the largest weight of it, to be honest. And outside of that,
Okay.
you can't really do too much with it.
Right. And I personally use that because I used to, when I first started, I used to burn CDs and DVDs. And I would go film events and I would sell those CDs and DVDs. So it was kind of like a permit to sell like in different places or public venues and things like that. It's like I at least had a DBA to show them that, hey, I did file I am legitimate. So yeah, it's your very bare, basic, bare bones um, thing you can have for your business. So let's get into LLCs. Of course, when the opportunity presented itself for me to scale, significantly scale my company, first thing I did was LLC. I did a name change, I did a rebranding, I just did an overhaul. It went from Amazing Entertainment Productions to Amazing Media. So of course I got my EIN number, I LLC filed my state papers. Um, but it seems like that's the go-to for everybody when they start their business. Like, oh, go get your LLC. But I want to make sure that everybody has a clear picture of what they're diving into because it's not really as simple as just getting an LLC. It's like, okay, now I'm setting myself up for success. I have this now. Now I can go forward. So what are some things people need to look at as far as like when they start out, and LLC being the end all be all? Because I know there's multiple variants within the LLC. You got single member, multi-member, those kinds. So just go into that.
Exactly. So, gosh, it's such a clicky little topic. So my thing would be, and I'm prefacing this with this: make sure before you even approach this yourself, get yourself an accountant, tax preparer, CPA who understands the tax ramifications of this, because this is really a taxing deal as well as it is a legal structure. Okay, so how you pay taxes, how you manage those revenues, those dollars coming in, how you pay taxes as a person and as a company will be mitigated by the decision you make with this particular legal structure called a limited liability company. Now, and I want to say, gosh, this is about 5 or 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and this is coming from the IRS. They started getting really stringent on these single member LLCs. A lot of folks who are sole proprietors were moving into the single member LLC and using it as a cover, if you will, to, in some form or fashion, mitigate some of the issues or tax burdens that they may be having as a sole proprietor.
Right.
Now, sole proprietor, it's not on the list, but it is an actual structure. You can go and set up your EIN and be a sole proprietor, file your taxes on your Schedule C, et cetera, and you'll be okay. A single member limited liability company is technically, and I'm going directly from the IRS website, is is seen as a pass through. Is seen as a disregarded entity, quite frankly. Okay, so those single member LLCs, they're not seen as partnerships. Okay, now a two-member plus LLC is going to be seen as a partnership, much stronger legal entity. But please make sure, as a single member LLC, you have your ducks in a row and you are filing your taxes accordingly with your CPA. Because just treating it as, oh, I got an LLC and this is great, you don't understand the tax structure of this thing. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble thinking you have the protections that you don't. Because the next thing I would say is, what's your operating agreement look like?
Right.
If you don't have an operating agreement with that single member or multi-member LLC, you're in trouble.
Yep. Because there's stipulations that I recently just found this out, but and this might be a tailored tip because once again, the tailored tips are going to be the smaller, shorter discussions in between the episodes, just to kind of go more in depth of these kind of topics. Because I think this really needs to go really in depth. There's like multi layers to this thing. But what I recently just found out is with LLC, even a single member or a sole proprietor, you even have to go into the stipulations of that agreement, and you have to like know from a legal standpoint. So it's like if you ever sued and things like that, if you just go with the generic literature that's in there when you get your LLC, you're still liable for, you're still not protected under that LLC. They can still come after you as an individual. So it's writing, it's literature that you actually got to change, and you got to craft it to match the parameters of your business. So that's why I say I'm not going to go in depth of it because I just learned about this. So it's just like I don't want to slaughter it, but I'll bring someone on, an expert that knows all about that. But yeah, you have to like get the writing and the literature down to fully protect yourself under that LLC. That single.
Yeah, because you don't want to. You don't want to breach. Because again, an LLC is an entity created by state statute, first of all, and depending on the elections that you make, uh, you're going to be the managing member, 100% owner, et cetera, of that limited liability company, and uh, you can a domestic LLC at least is considered a disregarded entity if it's one member only. It's really considered a disregarded entity. So if you're going to be a one member LLC, understanding the scrutiny thereof, understanding how your operating agreement is, you don't want to be non-compliant in how you're moving because they can easily pierce that corporate veil and come after you personally if you're not
Yeah.
operating accordingly.
Right, and that's exactly that was the wording right there. It's just in that literature. So it's like if you're not if you haven't crafted that messaging or those details, they can still come after you. So
Mhm.
it sounds like the sole proprietor or single member LLC is the new DBA, basically, or essentially.
Kind of, sort of, and I really don't like when I see social media pushing it like get the LLC like it's the end all be
Right.
all without talking about who do we need to discuss those options with, and
Mm-hmm.
going to the CPA, going to the attorney and looking at, okay, which legal structure do I need to start my business off with? And according to what industry standard, how much revenue am I looking to bring in? Who should be that second or third member on my LLC to make it a multi-member or a partnership? And then understanding how that operating agreement needs to be structured, who has ownership for what, there's so many little nuances within that that
Mm-hmm.
starting a business you want to have those conversations out the gate before you get started. So I haven't made any money yet,
Yeah.
coach. I'm not sure. Well, you still should be structured accordingly so that your operating agreement and then your policies and procedures and your SLPs reflect what you're about to get into.
Right, exactly. And then definitely getting a CPA because I followed the direction of my CPA who knew all the tax laws. And basically, I did on my own accord, went and got the LLC before I consulted with my CPA. So he was just like, no, that's fine. You know, your type of business and where you are right now, that's fine. But he was just like, you know, in a year or so, we want to look at you possibly S corping because he listed all the benefits with that. But I need to get to a certain number. So as great as I did during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, I never got to the point where I'm not ready yet to S corp. It's just like a certain number that he wants me to hit before I S corp. But you really do need to consult a professional that knows the tax laws, and y'all have to do your own research and your homework because your industry is unique to you. So if you're running nonprofit, a 503, 501c, you might be looking at a whole different entity setup. So, it's but the information we're providing here, as far as like consulting a CPA, it's all the same across the board. But you have to understand what entity best for you in your industry. So going back to the LLC, so as a single member, what are some of those things that are going to hinder business owners or future entrepreneurs from getting, I guess, resources and benefits and things like that further down the road that they might not be considering?
Well, so I don't mind people getting an LLC, right? I really don't. Um, and if it's in accordance to industry standard. So the episode we had before talks about the NAICS codes and what the industry looks like, and going to those companies that who your competition. How did they start out? And if we're looking at funding, for example, and we're looking at building business credit, we're looking at building these. What's the best foundation for us to start with? Okay. And if our business entity LLC isn't structured properly, you can go after certain business funding. You can go after certain opportunities because your corporate structure is not what it needs to be. If you're joining your local chamber of commerce, they're going to want to make sure that everything about your business is aligned properly and structured properly. So there's a lot of opportunity that I see people miss day in and day out, and I mean multi-million dollar opportunities, only because their company isn't structured properly. You don't have your operating agreement. Or when you go to get certified as a minority business in multiple areas, there's certain criteria that's just a standard check the box for, let's just say, City of Houston, Harris County, etc. And if your business doesn't have those things, they're not really looking at you as a real entity. And here's the part that I think people miss holistically. They assume you know what business looks like when you walk through the door. So we
Right.
can't take just a dry run, go file an LLC with my Secretary of State, and I get nothing else about it. I have no charter, I have no a ledger, right? I never hear anyone talk about the ledger, the ownership ledger, etc. But when you get around the chambers of commerce, which is why we say go join those, because they can teach you those little nuances depending on your industry. So we miss so much, man. I was at an economic development meeting, breakfast yesterday. Prairie A&M, shout out to them, shout out to the Hill. Waller County Economic Development came through. Y'all would not believe the magnitude of business going on in that area of the Houston, Texas metroplex. But they assume you got your stuff together, because when you start having those one-on-one conversations, and they're seeing how they want to do business with you,
Right.
I, Instagram's nowhere around. TikTok is not going to help you if you're not structured properly, right? So to answer your question, I know I kind of went into it, but that's well, I'm so glad you're having this conversation on this podcast. We have to have those conversations
Right.
with the right professionals. And you know what is sexy? When you walk into a room and you can own it and you got your stuff together, you got your binder with you, and now the economic development director or the president of Prairie View can say, "Come to my office, let's have a meeting because we see what you got going on." Listen, that's
Yep.
the sexy part for me.
Absolutely. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast is because we don't tap into those resources that are available to us. Therefore, we just go off of what we heard on social media or, people that we think we can trust and things like that. Because they had their best interest, your best interest in mind, but they only are teaching you what they know. So this is the purpose of this podcast is to make sure you take advantage of every considerable resource as available before starting your entity or before starting your business, because everybody just wants to go right out the gate and then just like, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur now, I got my own business, but it's just like, but if you don't put those things in place, you're setting yourself up for failure. So now that we got all of those things out of the way, so let's talk about the proper ways to structure. I know there's not a one size fits all, as I described with the different industries, but what are some more common LLCs as far as like what we're talking about, what will work when you're having those face-to-face conversations or when you're wanting to talk to those bigger businesses or do business with government and things like that? What are some of the proper ways we should LLC or structure?
Yeah, yeah, I would rather you be, a multi-member uh, partnership, and that's how the IRS will see it. So you're either a partnership when you're two members more, or they consider you as such. So you're much more as a legitimate entity at that point. So, well, because I don't know anybody else I can have, well, I would have somebody else on my charter. Somebody else. It could be my accountant. You can have on the charter. You can have a business colleague that's assisting you. They don't have any voting rights or anything of that nature. So again, that's why getting with an attorney, getting with a CPA to make sure that's done. But when you have a multi-member, you looked upon in perspective and perception is everything coming out the gate, especially as a small startup or early stage business. Even if you're in business for a couple of years, have somebody else on there. Fellas, if you're married, ladies, if you're married, bring that partner on. Okay. Um, then we want to look at how we're being taxed. And again, get with the CPA, but just how we're being taxed. Are we an LLC taxed and we're taxing on our Schedule C? Possibly. Are we taxing ourselves as an S Corp? Which once you start to gain enough revenue, you would want to look at that. And I would look at that out the gate because that small corp taxation is very helpful. Don't want to give any specific advice on how that's the CPA's thing, but make sure you understand. LLC, do I file as a Schedule C or am I filing my taxes as an S Corp? Right? Am I tax electing to be as an S Corp? Limited liability partners, fantastic entities to have. Understand the structures underneath that operating agreement is everything. Your bylaws are everything. Now, when do you make enough revenue to get to the C Corp or the corporation? Because that's really the entity itself. Now, under the IRS, under the corporate structure, if you will, under the tax code. There's the S structure statute, and then there's a corporation because everything's a corporation. There's a corp, either the C corp, which is just your standard corporation, or the S, which is a small corporation. Okay, all income is a pass through to the shareholders. The larger corporation is likely to join the C corp since they protect from liability and they don't and they but give sorry they give up the pass through. So the small corporation gives up the pass through, meaning income comes through and they're taxing the shareholders. The corporation is technically a double tax, but when you add that revenue status, it doesn't really matter. So you got your DBA, your limited liability company as a single member. Multi-member is better. Once you hit a certain revenue status, you want to start looking at being taxed as an S corp, then becoming a full S corp, and then once you really start jamming, we can be a full corporation. So there's reasons why those things exist, and there's like you said, you can start off at a certain level, and then once you hit certain revenue
Hmm.
milestones, if you will, that's when we start to grow into that. So that's the conversation we need to be having with ourselves, and not just jumping and getting an LLC and not understanding. Because if you get that corporate veil pierced, you're in trouble, and then now you're non-compliant. Now you're in, I won't say trouble, but you can be in trouble for doing something that paperwork could have covered you with the right guidance.
Yep. This is all very informative, Coach. Just the information you're providing, because I actually did a presentation called "The Basics of Starting a Business" that displayed on another podcast. But that was a year ago, so I'm definitely gonna have to make some revisions because this is a rehash in a sense, because I did not cover this in depth as far as like just the different structures and everything Coach is describing right now. But yeah, having a CPA is very invaluable because just as Coach mentioned, he was just like, okay, you're LLC right now, but we can still do your taxes as an S corp until you're fully ready to move into the S corp status. But structuring yourself correctly, because I'm gonna have to, as Coach is talking, I'm like, oh my, I gotta make some amendments. uh, all this is going to save you from making amendments because once you get your entity, once you get your EIN, if you have to make even just the slightest change to anything, that's an amendment that you're going to get done. That's money. That's a lot of money to get an
Yeah,
amendment done.
money, time. Yeah, and I'll say this too when it comes to that proper structure. Every business needs to be certified. If you're not a white male, you need to be certified across the board to take advantage of multiple business opportunities. That credentialing of that entity is very important across the board. Looking at, and I'm noticing in a lot of our businesses, that sweet spot is almost the LLC, multi-member, filing taxes as a small business or as a small S corp, as an S corp. That's the sweet spot that you want to be in out the gate. Being just an LLC, single member, that's you. There's a lot of scrutiny there. Being an LLC multi-member, good to go. You still have a Schedule C that you have to put those taxes on, and you're still on the borderline of being a disregarded entity. So, are we filing taxes as an S corporation under the limited liability company? Are you? That should be, and that's a conversation I would have with my accountant. Hey, listen, I heard the podcast talking to Coach. What's should I be here and give me the benefits thereof, or when should I be looking at that? Because once you put that on paper and you register with the federal government, you register with the cities and all that, that's there. So you've got to undo all of that in every application you put out. It's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just jumping and doing something, you got to go back and redo. We have a couple of clients that we're taking on now. They're going through that. So I hope they hear this in this podcast because this is where preparation meets missed opportunities or lack thereof, meets missed
Yeah.
opportunities. Yeah, and it's man, it's when the opportunity presents itself and you're not prepared for it, and the paperwork that you have to go back and fix that you didn't attempt to, really get done right the first time. Guys, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. That's
Coaches
that's
give
that's, that's really gonna be tough.
coaches give me trauma right now because I went through that at the height of the pandemic because Uh, when I mentioned in my introduction, I had a great pivot idea that was not only my company's saving grace during the pandemic, but my company's thriving grace because it allowed me to scale exponentially in a short period of time. So I had to do all of these things we're discussing in a 4 month window, LLC and rebranding, renamed, SOP, getting my automations, all these things that's going to come out with all these episodes. But early on, in the midst of all this going on, it's just like I made some mistakes. I filed a LLC under my old company name when I just rebranded to the new name, so I had to change it over to a new name and shelling out money for that, and then just the time it took because and then I had to get a whole new EIN number for that as well. So I had to get an entirely new EIN number. That was a lot of time that was wasted and money. So if you're just coming out the gate and you're just speeding through this, you're going to be costing yourself a lot. So definitely take this advice. Utilize the resources that's available to you. And Coach, did you want to go in more into the S corp, C corp? I think or did you just already pretty much just?
Yeah, I mean, both S and C corp, and I'm kind of going off my notes that I got off the IRS here. Both S and C corporations must file articles of incorporation with the state. Okay, so when you get into that corporation status, to then become an S corporation, all shareholders must sign that Form 2553 with the IRS. So a lot of this, again, go to irs.gov is really the point I want to make. Because what I've seen over time, and it'll be 18 years for us in October. I've seen the growth. We've gone through the growth. We had our construction company. We did green commercial, da da da. Getting into the consulting, awesome business strategies, awesome business coaching. So I've done the little growth spurts here and there, based on how you're filing your paperwork. We're doing a sam.gov registration for another entity right now. So making certain that you're in the growth phase and selecting the entity based on what the IRS wants you to do, needs you to do, based on where you are. So it's not a one size fits all for everybody. I'd be okay with you being a sole proprietor, the EIN number with the Schedule C.
Hmm.
I'd be totally fine with that because I think that would be cool for a lot of people. And incorporating and putting your name out there. First initial, last name, enterprises. Boom. You can't go wrong because you can do any entity, I mean, any industry, doesn't matter. And filing the tax paperwork accordingly and the legal structure accordingly is fine. At least you're in there and you don't have to change the name and change so many things. But make sure you're approaching it from where your revenue is and where you are in that growth lane. That's the most important part,
Right.
honestly.
Yep. Because I'm not even going to try to describe it, but I was set up properly enough to where my company qualified for every single government resource that was out there when they was giving out money. My company got both rounds of PPP, got the EIDL loan, and I recently just got the was it the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax
Yeah,
Credit. So
tax credit, yeah.
my company now qualified for every single CARE Act that was available, um, because of how it was structured. So it's just like I had my Schedule C, I had the LLC, had my state operating agreement. So everything they asked for when it was time to do those applications, my CPA, my bookkeeper was able to provide that information. So that's what I'm putting on the screen right now. This is further down the notes, but since we're talking about getting a CPA, consult with the CPA to make sure you know the tax laws and the legal ramifications as far as like how you structure your business. It's very important to consult and look into retaining a CPA. I was fortunate enough to get a bookkeeper and a CPA. That bookkeeper
Wow.
was able to do my quarterly financials, where it's like I had a overall glance at the health of my business, like my business's financials health, the profit and loss, like what my margins look like. And then at the end of
You
the
did good.
year, so at the end of the year, when it's tax time, all my bookkeeper did was just take all those financials and just gave it to my CPA. My CPA job was so easy because all the financials was there, all the quarterlies, and all he did was just put in the information and here's my booklet. He's like, Colin, you did really good. Here, I mean, I see what you spent on marketing, and I already knew without even looking at your revenue. I just looked at how much you spent on marketing, and I could tell you did extremely well with your revenue. So that I know everyone's not out the gate is going to have be able to get a bookkeeper and a CPA, or get a bookkeeper or a CPA. But this is just really important. If you're going to do this yourself, you got to stay on top of everything. You got to categorize. You got to do payroll. You got to do all those things yourself. So you really look into getting those things, getting a CPA or a bookkeeper, and then also let's just go into a little bit about owner's distribution, Coach, if you could, because you can technically
So
do owner's distribution under LLC, or is that only under S corp or the other corporations?
I would rather you go into it when you're when you're as a corporation, right? Because now you're looking at potentially, well, you're going to be double taxed as a corporation, but that's fine. Owner's distribution is okay because most of the revenue and the taxes as an S corp is going to be passed through to you, the owners or the shareholders anyway. Okay, so owner's distribution is when you get to enough where you have enough to do an owner's distribution on, honestly. So I would wait till you get that corporation status, and take advantage of the pass through, if you will, that the S corporation allows you to have. That would be. I'm still doing that with one of my businesses now.
Yeah.
I'm not taking owner's distribution until a little bit later down the line, honestly, because I want to make sure that my revenue as such and my cash burn allows it to, because we're reinvesting so much. So what could be an owner's distribution really is returning into a reinvestment into the company.
Right.
So I can get to a certain level. Then once we hit a certain level of revenue, that's extra revenue is going to be the piece for a salary for a manager to take my position so I can be hands off, get my own distribution. That way, once we get enough scale and revenue, that way I'm hands off and I'm really more managing and CEOing than I am actually operating.
Right.
So Great question. Now, there is one piece that we didn't talk about, the 501c3. You brought
Absolutely.
it up earlier. We are missing so much money. Not having a 501c3 type O as a community development corporation.
Please go into it.
Our fi- yeah. So our 501c3s, and I hear it a lot, like they're trying to raise, and this is mostly not culture, in the Hispanic Latino culture as well. We don't have to always have a 501c3 that we're raising capital for, waiting for donations, hoping for donations, getting our mission and vision aligned with certain larger entities to donate, fund our venture, or looking to raise money through grant writing, etc. A community development corporation, a CDC, is a vital part of business. I look into what the NFL did 5 years ago, I think. They were a nonprofit at one point in time. Look at how they were structured, and multiple other entities too. So having a for-profit LLC, S corp, C corp, etc., and having a 501c3 on the form, there's a type O and there's like a three-digit code that will help you designate as a CDC. There's American Rescue Plan ARPA funds that come down to every county, every state, every city, every parish that you can tap into to be that community development corporation. Develop your communities. That's what the money's for.
Mm.
So there's funding, there's resources available, and we're not remotely touching it. In the city of Houston, last time I checked with my SCORE mentor and representative, she's in Dallas. We looked up the numbers. Out of the millions of dollars available in the city of Houston, Texas, for CDCs alone, guess how much money we pulled down as an African American culture, even Latino culture? Guess how much money we pulled down?
Probably tons.
Goose egg, zero.
Oh, zero.
So there's millions of dollars on the sideline that we're not even remotely touching because we don't know that this
Yeah,
thing
that,
called
that's what I meant.
CDC
That's what I meant. Tons.
exists.
There are tons of.
Yeah, yeah, insane, crazy, and I feel bad for it. So my thing is, I'm glad this podcast again is out. Let's talk about what really works for us as small business owners, and imagine how much we could do when we have those just the right structure in place, understanding, and again, go to and let me just layer that with this going to a score, going to a chamber of commerce. Shout out to the Tri County Black Chamber of Commerce right here in Houston, Texas. Phenomenal chamber. Shout out to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Shout out to the Asian Chamber of Commerce. Shout out to the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. They focus so much on the small business. Shout out to the Women's Chamber of Commerce. Listen, those chambers are massive vessels of economic understanding, your economic development corporations out there. That's where you really start to hone in your skills. And you go there with all your brokenness, if you will. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm trying to go. And they're going to say, sit down and let's help you get this together. And it's
Right.
okay to go there with whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like with this podcast. We don't have to come polished up or nothing. No. And they know that you're not polished. They don't want you to be. Who cares? Right? Let's just be who we are. And this is what I'm trying to do in the marketplace. And the funny thing about it, whoever runs that chamber is going to start working with you. And there's other businesses around you who are ancillary to your support. You help them, I help you. We're an ecosystem.
Right.
And that's where you make this thing work.
Yep.
That's where you know, here's how to structure it. This is what I got to do. And it allows you not to be, again, don't lean on your own. Don't lean on your own
Your own
understanding.
understanding.
Yeah, it's scriptural, but it's in real life as well. Like I had a conversation this morning. I sent an email to my attorney this morning. She called me about 8 o'clock, which is very early. She's like, "Hey, I saw this email. Let's talk." And I was about to make a move again, but I said, "No, hold on." So I sent my office manager an email and I sent my attorney an email. She's like, "Do this and do that." I felt an immediate lowering in my stress level. I'm more strategic, but off the cuff, me personally, I would have screwed that deal up so bad.
Right.
But you having those people to fall into, and well, I can't afford all that, coach. Yeah, you can. You can afford to
Right.
sit down and go talk to these people because most of these things are free that you go to.
Right.
So wanted to throw that together, man, because if we can do that, especially with those CDCs and 501c3s, if
Gems.
ev- if every minority business, I'm gonna just say in city of Houston alone, we can get their 501c3 and start tapping into those ARPA funds and start getting with the folks around. Give Chris Senegal a call. He's buying back the block. Give all those calls, all those guys. Gilbert, everyone that knows real estate. Give the healthcare people a call, whatever sector you're in, and say, hey, this is what I'm setting up. You'd be surprised because they're doing the same thing. And we can buy back our own blocks collectively
Right.
and bring commerce back to our blocks collectively with what's available right now. Nothing fancy, nothing new. And man, we can make an impact in a matter of 18 months.
Absolutely.
Impact.
Absolutely. Wow, he dropped some serious gems. So if you're going into the nonprofit sector, Coach, what are the name of those funds again?
So they're ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act funds. ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. That's federal dollars.
ARPA.
That's mandated money.
Okay.
But they're only going to give them out to CDCs, Community Development Corporations.
And I'll put that information on the screen. It will also be in the description. But wow. And what it comes down to is being intentional as well, everyone. Because when starting my business, especially when I got to the point of scaling, everything was about intentionality. And I talked about how, I didn't have a foundation at first, and I just kept hitting this invisible cap. And basically, when I hit that invisible cap, it was just basically not having those systems in place was limiting me from getting over that hump, basically, which is scaling, which is leveling up, basically. And then the pandemic was that in disguise, because, like I said, that idea, that pivot idea, allowed me to get all those systems that I've been wanting, that I've been needing. So when I was in a position to, I surrounded myself with all types of people who are smarter than me, brand strategist, social media marketer, a marketer, CPA, bookkeeper, because these are people I had to confide in. It's just like I wasn't even going to pretend like I knew what I was going into. I was in new territory. So I want people I could consult with before making any major moves, people who do this for a living, people who are actually coming into my business, helping my business get organized and structured. So dropping some serious gems, Coach. Golly, give
Appreciate it,
like
man. No, I hope so.
hitting them with left and right. It's just hopefully y'all are taking this down. Um,
That's too funny.
so now we can move on to the next, because that was a big portion right there. So definitely go back and watch all this information as far as like the structuring the entities. But now we're coming on down to the next step. So setting up a commercial or virtual office and business phone number. So just go into that, Coach.
Commercial office, virtual office, business phone number. I mean, it's mandatory. If we're going to be in business, we can't. And I'm saying this on the arm of a lot of folks are trying to navigate lack of capital, or we're bootstrapping, so that commercial office could cost money that revenue may not be bringing. I know a lot of folks, and this may be not what folks want to hear often. Some folks can you can operate a business from your home. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a virtual office where there's someone at the front desk answering your phone. You get mail there. Don't get it to where there's these virtual offices where there's no phone being answered, and like Regis. Just be careful.
Mm-hmm.
And two places I would call: Chamber of Commerce, and call the folks at sam.gov and say, hey, this is an address I'm looking for. Does this qualify as a good virtual office? Because why? If it's not, they'll deny you when you go to get certified and get registered. Chamber of Commerce will tell you exactly where to go. Exactly where to go. So those commercial offices are good. Those little I call them little closet offices, quite frankly. Those little WeWork spaces. They're out there a lot now. Right? Business phone number, please have one. There's multiple ways and places you can get them, the whole ring centers of the world, etc. Have a good business phone number. Have an 800 number. You have a local number too. That's fine. But you want to start to separate even from the legal entity. We went early with the LLC, the corporation, the LLPs, etc.
Mm-hmm.
You, the person, your social security number needs to be totally separate from the operations of the entity you're forming. So under the EIN number, your mission and vision for the for-profit and nonprofit should be about the same. So setting up that commercial space, where are you going to do business? There's a reason why you have a home office. There's a reason why there's the Augusta rule and things of that nature that allow you to have square footage in your home that is an office. That's okay to have as long as you're doing it according to the IRS tax code. It's okay to have those things. That's the reason why people have two. I
Mm-hmm.
used to. I'm in my front office right now at home. The last interview we did, I was in my office. People are like, "Oh, I didn't realize." Yeah, I am. And trust and believe, I'm writing both of them off
Yep.
according to the IRS tax code. But that phone number you call when you call Austin Business Strategies, that is our that's a business phone number, right? It routes to our VAs when we're out of the office. It'll route back to the office whenever we're here. That's just do it according to the IRS tax code. That's not over complicate what's really simple. And I think what we get messed up with Colin is that we'll listen to other things that have marketing dollars behind them that makes it sound interesting. But like I said earlier, I was at the economic development breakfast at Prairie View. There was no social anything in that room.
Mhm.
Everybody had a business card. They got their numbers. They have addresses. Some were home. Some were, again, it was all business though.
Yeah.
And everyone felt comfortable doing business with those people because of the way they were set up and structured properly. From the startup to folks who've been in business 20 years. And those conversations were very fluid at that point.
Absolutely. And we're all about giving cheat codes on this podcast. So, Coach, go into even just the strategy of strategically putting getting a virtual office in a certain place.
So I would say, I would say two spots. Having a virtual office in a prime area, like in Houston, you've got the Heights, downtown, you've got the Galleria area, Postal, different spaces, Oral Center, Energy Corridor, those zip codes where you've got high revenue, high tax dollars, or those prime areas. I would say go there. You should have one. I would also say pull up the SBA hub zone, historically underutilized business zone map,
It's a big one.
and look at having an office. Oh yeah, have an office in those spaces. Now, the benefit of having an office in a hub zone is there's funding for hub zones. They need to grow the economic base within a hub zone. Okay. So they want you to hire people within that hub zone. So there's benefits and grants and funding and business opportunities for hub zone businesses. So if I have a prime location, office A, and office B is in a hub zone, great. I can double dip in both sides, if you will. And it's a legitimate way to do business on both sides. You may not be able to do that out the gate, right? But if I'm googling one office and some offices honestly can be in an industrial or in a corporate office space, but still be in a hub zone. My main office is right next to the Houston International Airport, but where we are in that corner, that fat corner, is a hub zone. But when you leave the airport, there's nothing but office buildings all over the place, and I'm sitting in one of them. So I've strategically put ourselves right there. Plus, it's not far from the house. So it's like 20 minutes in and out. So I can go to the suburbs and come back in my hub zone prime location of an office. So look at those things. So when clients fly in and fly out, I'm not far. I'm easy access in and out. So I look very legitimate, which we are, of course. But you can put yourself in a space like that. And on my floor of my office, on the opposite side, there's the WeWork spaces. So
Hmm.
you've got those little 200 square foot office spots, door, hard access, lounging outside with the coffee machine, everything else. But I mean, there's not much that you're paying for that little spot right there.
Exactly. Um, I hope that didn't go over y'all's head, but everything is about strategy. It's like everything you are doing when you're setting up a business is a strategy. There should be a strategy behind it. Because you could live in Beverly Hills, but have your office in a hub zone, as Coach stated, and that qualifies your business for all these government resources and things like that. So it's just like, because you're going to be providing jobs for lower income employees and things like that. So it's like you're providing jobs, you're pumping money into the local economy. So it's just like being strategic about that. It's just like literally money out here that's just waiting to be poured into your business. But as Coach stated earlier, we're missing out on so many funds because we don't know these things. We don't tap into our local resources. So the other thing I was going to mention is if you have an iPhone, because I guess I'm all about giving some cheat codes. I have two phone numbers on this one phone. Depending on who you're with, I'm with Verizon, so I have a personal line and a business line on there. It's what's called an eSIM. That's in all, I believe, iPhone 13s and up. It might be 12 also, but you have to do your research. but they come with eSIM. So basically, you can put I'm like you, coach. I can't talk now. uh, it's basically you can put an electronic phone number in your phone, and basically you can have a secondary number, and you can establish that as your business number. So I still have that registered with 411. That's still listed publicly, so I can get phone calls from my business and personal all from one phone, but it's categorized as business or personal. So that's something to look into with your carrier also. So whether you have T-Mobile, I don't know if T-Mobile and AT&T are the same, but I know Verizon does that where you can have two lines on one phone. But there's also VoIP out there, correct, Coach? Like VoIP phones and so.
Yeah, voice over IP. Yeah, look into those. I'm still, I'm gonna say old school, but make sure that whatever hack you go after or ease of access you go after when you go to register these things with government, city, corporate entities, they're accepted. Because you'd be surprised who doesn't do these things. There's large corporations who do the same thing. Just make sure that they're accepted in those spaces before you jump off and do these things. Just please do so. And
Correct.
take my 18 years of expertise, because people may look at me and be like, "Well, coach, you know this. You've been here. You're at this level." Listen, man. No, I'm just in certain spaces that you're not,
Right.
unfortunately. So you can go to the mastermind. This is gonna step on some toes, Colin. Hope I can say it.
Of
You can
course.
go to the mastermind of the house with the Lamborghini parked out front. I've been to those. I have, on purpose. I want to see what it's like. But also make sure you're coupling that with economic development meetings, going to SCORE meetings, attending SBA Zoom meetings, all of those things. Because if you're on the SBA's calendar throughout the year, the mix of in person and Zoom or Teams, they give you all this data. So that's nothing I'm saying that I'm making up. They give you all this data, all this information about the addresses and this, that, and the third, and the structuring. And they give it all to you and give you resources of who to go to. We're just not in enough of those spaces because, well, whatever reason. But what I find hurts us and why I kind of jab, because a lot of people are like, Coach, why are you so hard on the social media gurus or this, that, and the third? Well, who else is going to be? I need to be. Somebody's got to hold accountable for the misinformation because
Right.
I'm in these real world business spaces and I see what works and what doesn't, and also see what hurts us. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm on consultations with people like, man, I wish I would have found you earlier. I wish I knew this before. And like, well, what were you doing? Who were you taking advice from? And a lot of it comes into they've gotten misinformation from high marketed situations. Well, let's teach you how to do your business without putting your hands on it. Or let's teach you this and teach you that to do it quickly and fast. No, no, because the people teaching you don't have businesses themselves. I mean, if you really look at it, and if we want to learn proper due diligence to acquire business, the questions you would ask the people that are marketed to you, they would fail hand over fist. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
I'm not trying to knock anybody, but they would fail the simple due diligence litmus test of what is a real business,
Right.
right? And how do you set yourself up so that now I can go out there and do my thing. And you find yourself moving a lot faster in these business spaces where business is really being done.
Absolutely. And we have our inside guy giving the information. That's why I really could not think of anybody better to do this topic than Coach, because I've heard him speak in so many rooms, and I was just like, I have to have him on my podcast to talk about this. So thank you, Coach, for being on here and discussing this, because this is much needed information. So next thing we're gonna do is register our EIN, irs.gov. So go into that, Coach.
Free, free, and free, free, free. IRS.gov. Register your EIN number. You'll get it quickly. Make sure at the end of the process, though, because so two things I want everybody to be really careful of. If you register your EIN number today, but you started your business earlier in the year, well, they'll ask you on there, when did you start? So make sure that you're operating and you click that because you don't want to lose that time. Because the more seasoned your business, the better. Okay. So see how far back the IRS will allow you to click that date, and that's the date that you'll get it started. At the end of it all, it'll allow you to print it and or save that PDF. Because if not, it's hard to get them on the phone. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So please make sure you print and save that document right at the end. Don't click too fast, and make sure that you check LLC, sole proprietor, blah blah blah, whichever entity that you're looking to put that EIN number with. which is why it's really important before you do any of this stuff. Part of your market research is talking to those trained professionals. Hey, I'm about to do this. What would you advise based on what I'm doing? But before I register my EN. Do that because you'll gain some time that you may have otherwise lost.
Absolutely. Those PDFs come in handy, y'all. Everything is on this little flash drive, like all my stuff, all my state operating agreement papers, my EIN, so I can quickly reference. Like I pretty much have everything memorized now. So when they want my EIN or they want Dunn's number and all that, like I pretty much have all that stuff memorized. But if I need to pull it up, if I have to go into the local SBA office or anywhere and they need to see that information, I can quickly draw that up. So it's much, I mean, we live in a digital world, so I don't think anyone's really printing out paperwork and just carrying papers around with them. But getting a flash drive and putting all those documents into a folder on a flash drive is really helpful. And of course, keeping up with that flash drive, don't lose that. So
Yeah, I would get
next,
two. I would get two
back it
just to
up.
say I got a little one and I got a like a 2 terabyte little box that I download that on because I lost one flash drive I'm trying to find now. So that's another story.
I know the pain. So next thing we doing, we have our, and this is all strategic too, y'all. Even just the way we ordered this, and you'll see why. But next thing we are doing, we are opening a business account. So, Coach, we can go into a little bit of a discussion here because there's I hear both talks of open, establish a relationship with a local federal credit union, get a bank account with a federal credit union. Then I hear no, you should be getting a business account with a major bank. So what I guess are the pros and cons of each, or maybe you could just go into both uh, local credit union and big bank.
Yeah, I think you need to have 2 to 3 accounts, honestly. Shout out to JP Morgan. I like how they move. And there's something about getting even a credit line with them first before you go to somebody else. Strategic, yes. Talk to a business relationship manager. I'll do that right away before you even open up the account. Go talk to the business relationship manager at JP Morgan Chase. Finding a local CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, a credit union that works with your industry. Okay. Every bank has a flavor, every bank has a certain appetite, every bank does something different than other banks do. So I hear a lot of folks complain or have an issue with, well, this bank didn't give me this. I didn't get this from so and so. I got denied this. And that's because you're dating the wrong person. You're trying to get an apple out of an orange bank. It's not going to work. Don't go to PNC. PNC is heavy healthcare. They're heavy certain things. If you're in real estate or you're in culinary and PNC doesn't really offer you what another bank would, this is where you need to have interviews with these banks. This is where the Chamber of Commerce comes right in. Hey, I'm doing this. What's the best bank for me in this area, in this particular genre of business? Where should I go? Who's favorable? Who's this? Who's that? Texas Alliance Bank, great bank, right? Great small business bank. You know where they pop up at? A lot of the local procurement meetings, the chamber meetings, they're there, right? People Fund, Lift Fund, that nature. SBA Lender Match. That's a great resource. SBA Lender Match. Why? Because they're an SBA approved lender. They lend according to SBA guidelines. Have to come to the table and just do a straight conventional loan. So you want to be forecasting out and planning out, hey, I may not need this stuff today, but in a year, 6 months from now, talk to the banker first before you do anything else out there. Because I want to get the money now before I need it, not try to scramble for it when all of a sudden I need to get this capital. And I'll be honest, I'm in a funny spot for that now. We're growing some business credit, business capital, getting those reserves to the side to make certain moves. So I'm having those conversations right now before I make the move that I'm about to make. Have to do that. And then you open up the account because it's very important. Every bank, all right, make sure to hear this. Every bank has a score, an internal banking score linked to your initial deposit amount.
Mm.
So you can go open it with $100 or $500. Okay,
Mm.
they're going to rank you accordingly.
Wow.
So you can drop 10 racks on them, 20 racks on them if you can. And it doesn't have to stay in there forever. And this is not some, illegal or wrong hack. No, they base a lot of how they move with you on that initial deposit, which you can only do it one time. Don't miss that, y'all. So I would gather up capital if you got some way to get someone to invest in your business temporarily. That helps you out tremendously. Go walk in Chase, go walk in a credit union and drop 20 in there, and then drop $100 in there and see how differently they treat you. How many products they offer you. Drop in a certain amount of money. Oh, we can give you a lot of credit and a loan and this and this and that. And your credit's pretty decent. Okay, listen, let's do this now.
Wow. I
Hmm.
that's not something I never. I'm pretty sure our viewers have never really considered. I personally didn't know that, Coach.
Yeah.
And I'm
Every
pretty
bank
sure a
has an
lot.
internal score.
Wow. So even getting future loans, that they'll look back at that first deposit and things like that. So they'll.
Yeah, because that score is always there, right? I don't know where it's at in the whole ledger of things, but how they
Wow.
score you out the gate, you can never make a second time make a first impression type thing. It's there. It is going to be
Wow.
there. That is
So
that
you,
ding.
so it's not even just going to the okay. I got my EIN. I got the this established. I got the entity. Let me go open a business bank account. So it's like no, you might need to even pump the brakes on that, just so you get a certain number of capital before opening that account. So it's like now you got to consider
Oh yeah,
that too.
yeah. I would go
So
back to the conversation of like say we were talking now.
uh,
Before you open the EIN, before you get the LLC, before any of that happens, I'm glad you chronologically walking people through this. Get the information, then go sit down with somebody before you do any of this stuff and strategically lay this thing out. So when you go to do it, you know what to expect. This should go viral, just the stuff we're talking about right now, because this can save so many people so much. So many people so much. So yeah, I would have that because I think it's called the SSIB. There's a score that there's an acronym that like the SBA goes on. And I've seen people with great credit. Their banking score was of a certain number to where they couldn't only lend them so much. And I know people that have good money in the bank,
mm-hmm.
but that internal startup score, that banking score was a little bit lower than what they would like for it to be. And they find out later on if the
Okay.
bank even tells them.
So my analytical mind is at work right now with this new information. So it's just like, of course, we're starting out the gate. Of course, we want our business to get traction and start, making revenue and things like that. So with this information in mind, it's just like, okay, well, I need somewhere to put my little earnings, my little revenue that my business is making. But at the same time, I don't want to get dinged for opening up this account with a low deposit amount. So is there a workaround to putting money
Yeah.
into somewhere before we go open this account? Because like we want that transaction history. We want to be putting this money in somewhere. We want to be like old gangsters putting it into a can and putting it under a mattress
Mm.
and
So here's what I would do. Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought that up because I didn't think about that little piece. People like, well, I can't wait that long. Okay. You can pick the most mundane,
mm-hmm.
strong credit union out there, right? They're liquid, they're fine. Right here in Houston, Wood Forest Bank's great bank, Regions Bank, they're good banks. You can have that starter relationship where it's like, okay, it's starter. I may keep you forever. This could be ride or die, but I'm not looking for that initial pow out the gate. But just know that if say you started at Wood Forest or Regions or a small credit union, whatever, that's your starter. You get going. Okay. Once you build some business credit up, things of that nature, and they get you a line of credit for X, whatever, you can take that out and say, okay, now I'm ready for the chase move. And I say chase move, I'm moving my assets over to a chase and or a PNC or a Texas Alliance, this, that, and the third. So you're preparing for that. That's fine. Everybody needs a starting spot and a jump off into the next realm of things. That's totally fine. Just make sure you're strategic with this information because a lot of times people be in business for 5, 6, 7 years and they're still in the same spot and they wonder when they need the capital or something, why can't I get what I need? What's wrong? Well, you haven't built the foundation yet for that. So people ask me all the time, why am I, how I move so fast and how am I there? I'm building foundations for the next move I'm making next year, 6 months from now, based on things I'm doing now that I built a year ago. When we were on Clubhouse for what, 2.5 years? That whole SBA thing, when I kept teaching all the EIDL stuff and all that,
Mm-hmm.
that's because I was planning already to be right next to the SBA. So all that audio that we're about to drop on YouTube, that was all strategic too. I got to take advantage of this time, but I'm maneuvering all this energy in the same direction of the goals that I have. That's all. That way, there's nothing that just happens. Now, blessings come, opportunities come, right? But for right now, the credit that we're bringing to the table, I'm going to probably take X amount and put it into a Chase account of a business that I'm going to acquire that has 5 or 6, 7 years on it.
Makes
So I
sense.
bring that age and the capital to a Chase bank, to a credit union. Oh, they love me.
Wow.
This is a cheat code, but it's a thing that anybody can do strategically. And this is where the hyper growth comes in when you start to get in business. You're being very strategic, very on purpose. And I don't hear this a lot on social
Would I
at
say
all.
would I say intentionality? It's just like without even being told that. It's just that was just my mindset. That was my attitude to be intentional. Because I've been some places I never want to be again. It's just that feeling of when I hit that invisible cap. It's just I do not like being there. It's an uncomfortable place, and especially hearing it from people that mean well because like they're watching me, they're seeing me do all these things. And Colin, like I'm so proud of you doing all these awesome things. It's like it seems like a compliment on the surface, but to me internally, it was just a reminder that hey, Colin, you're not where you need to be. You're not where you're supposed to be. And every time somebody came with that compliment, it was just a constant reminder. And it's just like they have no idea that I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. I'm not where I should be. So it was just, and once I put myself in position, and then the opportunity presented itself, it was a ton of work, but it was worth it. I went and put all those systems in place, got those SOPs, LLC restructured, got the bookkeeper. Like I was dishing out a lot of money. There's a lot of money being made, but a lot of money was going out because I was very strategic and intentional as far as like putting those systems, that paperwork in place to make sure that I did not go back to that place where I was. And
It's funny you,
coach is telling me new
no,
things too.
it's,
But go ahead.
yeah, no, no, it's funny you bring it up. I don't want to miss this when you talked owner's distribution earlier and how you kept putting money back into it for systems. We're at that space now. Like every dollar that's coming back, it has to go right back in. So it makes it seem like you're stagnant, but this is what you're building. So to your point, and I told my wife earlier today, I'm being very vulnerable now. I told my wife earlier something that you just said. Like I didn't say exact. I can't say exactly what I told her, but it was in a sense, we're here, but we've got to go here. And
Mm-hmm.
people may hear this and like, well, how much higher are you going to get? You understand when you know you can go for better and change the circle around you to be in other circles. Like I'm in circles, like oh, no, I got to change my circle. Nah, and it's not like I'm
Coach,
better than anybody else or nothing, but it's like
thank you.
nah, nah,
Coach,
nah.
let me interject right there because
Go ahead.
you are literally talking about what I was just about to say. It's just like I came across friends that were just or had the attitude towards me like, oh, you think you too good, but internally I'm just like, no, I don't think I'm good enough. That's why I'm working my ass off so much because like I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So no, I don't think I'm too good. I don't think I'm good enough. This is what's driving my hustle right now. This is why I can't do
I
this. I
totally get
can't
it.
do this. I can't do. I got to move out of this circle. It's just like this isn't feeding me. I gotta move this way because I'm not good enough.
Brother. I get you. What makes you know that you're not good enough and you're not settling for where you are is because you see other opportunities that you could be thriving in. Like the meeting yesterday at PV, in that space, I'm like, I'm glad I'm here. I like that I'm here. I like that I can dominate in this space, but I got to be here more. This needs to look like more of my everyday surroundings. So, yeah, I got to change this circle up a little bit. I got some things I got to do. And I told wifey, I'm sitting right here preparing for this. And before she left, and we had a conversation about some things. She was like, why? And I just, told her a few things. But yeah, you have to be able to see where the future is going, which is why what we said last podcast, market research, where are things going and where are you in that growth?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what irritates me when I see our people focus on the wrong things, but that's not taking you where we're going
Mm-hmm.
at all. And then 3 years from now, I'm gonna say probably 2 years from now, when this thing really starts to turn right side up and you see what's happening, a lot of people are gonna get left behind, Colin, and I feel bad for it. And it's not like oh, you so no, no, this thing is moving quickly but slowly, quickly. That may sound like somebody like, what the heck's Coach talking about?
Yeah.
There's it is not just AI, but it is AI. and the machine learning and the deep learning and the big data.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's with Waller County Economic Development. He and I had the most big data conversation. Someone you would never think, just passing this cat down the street, you wouldn't think anything about him. And he and his wife work really close together, but he is, whew, I mean, but the conversation was there, and in sitting with him and wondering, I've asked him some questions like, what's going on here? What's going on there? What's up with the economic development here? What's going on with the utilities and infrastructure? Oh, we went deep into because I'm asking him, what do you think? Where is this going? What's your pain points? Because I want to find out. Because why? I want to be able to help the economic development of that Prairie View, A&M, Waller County area. And then he tells me who's coming and who flies in and out of this area every day. I'm like, wait, what? Okay,
And
got
that
it.
was that came up because of a conversation in passing.
Yeah, because we were at the same economic development breakfast. He is one of the heads. But if you wouldn't approach him and then have those conversations about what's going on, I hear what you guys are presenting. How can we affect this? Because they want you to. That's why they have them. Economic development forums, economic development breakfasts is what it's called. Economic development. The economy is growing in that area, whether you like it or not. How do you play ball in that area? They'll tell you. They'll be very frank with you.
So most entrepreneurs are visionaries. So if you want to be an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, you have to be a visionary because you always are constantly looking ahead. You can in entrepreneurship, you can never just settle on like get comfortable and settle on your laurels. Even with the pivot, and as great things are going on, even in the pivot, I was already looking at the next things. I was always looking down the road because I knew what we had would not last, or it would last, but it's just like, but I could go open up another avenue or another revenue stream. So it's just like as an entrepreneur, you got to constantly always looking ahead, and being intentional. Being intentional gets you into these rooms that Coach is telling you about. So he's able to be in these rooms
Yeah.
where he can talk to people like this, and then they're telling him about, oh yeah, such and such is flying in and out. So it's like now he's already on to the next idea, already on to the next thing, and just like it just duplicates. It's just like rinse, repeat, and now you're just duplicating. That's why he has multiple businesses. How many businesses do you have, Coach?
Five.
Look, he said the fact that he
I
has
had
to
to
do
think like,
that, the fact that
yeah,
it's a count in
yeah.
his head. I mean, so
Well,
that.
five, and it's funny. We're going to probably have seven because we're going into cyber more. Got a team already set up for that. We're actually putting plans together to present for that, and going heavier into the AI space when it comes to business development. So we're probably going to add another two arms on top of that, just because the need's there. And
Yeah.
again, the need comes about because I'm hearing pain points because of rooms I'm already in.
Yeah.
So what makes me so special to be in these rooms? Nothing, because there's other people there too. There's not just me in a silo. No, no, there's other
Well,
people
well,
there.
what, well,
And
what
how I
got
got in there, mhm,
exactly? How I was just about to say. So, what got you into those rooms is what.
doing stuff for free. I'll be dead honest. Doing what I the work that I did with the Small Business Development Center for Prairie View, I did not get paid initially for that at all, for free. And why was that? Because I saw I need to be in these university systems. I need to be at LSU Prairie View. I need to be with the port. Da, 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 da. So I don't mind whatever I got to do to get in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Show value, and people are very humble when you show value and don't have to. Because they even say, "Well, we can't pay you a lot." I don't care what you can pay me. We'll figure it out. Let's co-brand this thing. Let's negotiate something because everything's a negotiation.
Right.
So I know they need me. I know that for sure because they're telling me we need you. But and why do how do I know that? Everything in business, Kylie, you know this. Everything in business is cyclical. So what they are doing now, they planned last year. Okay, cool. I wasn't part of last year's plan. I'm gonna be part of this year's plan. When I go meet with the president of Prairie View, I'm and with the head of entrepreneurship, the head of the business department, I'm going to be on next year's plan, if not going into it, because I know how the cyclical thing works. So I'm like, I'm fine. So what got me to where I'm at with the free resources, the revenue will take care of me. We'll break even and do our things.
Yep.
And then now the free stuff, I got went to university and I was having a conversation with Miss Soraya, and she's like, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on." And then I said, told her about the book we have with time management, all that. And she's like, you know what? You need to be here. I didn't know this thing was going on. I did not. But I showed up. I keep showing up. I stay consistent with my relationships. How are you doing? What's going on in the fall? Because I see y'all schedules out already for this month. How can I make sure we got to keep this thing going now? So I'm intentional with staying top of mind. I'm not
Yep.
bugging them. I'm staying top
Th-
of mind.
There's
Yeah,
that
we
there's
we,
that
we, we
word
got to
again.
get you here. Listen, I got to be
Intentional.
intentional, stay top of mind. And then they're like, can you come to this? Yeah, I'm coming. So I drove an hour from where I'm at in Kingwood to Prairie View. Got there, did my thing. That the little golf carts taking us to the meeting and everything, and it was sweet. So now that free will turn into who knows what.
So tapped on that just a little bit 2 weeks ago when we talked about the three P's. So this is the perfect time to talk about the three P's. Was it the three P's, or was like you offer a service, the three for free, three
Oh,
below the
oh,
price
so
of book?
yeah. So the three, how do we call it? I got a brain freeze. So so you offer your services for free. Okay, 333.
Three
So
three
the
three.
333
Sorry,
model.
yes, the three three
Yeah,
three
yeah.
model.
So you want to get three clients, potential clients for free when you first start now. It is a pro bono ish, if you will. So you're doing it for free. You're offering the same premium service. You're not going to charge them because what you want them to do is give you honest feedback. Yes. Hey, I'll do this for free. I'm not going to charge you a whip, right? But I need you to go out and do this on social media. I need a good testimonial from you. I need this, I need this, I need that. Most people, and you have a contract for that. Most people, yeah, I'll do it. So now you're building up. The next three, you do it half the rate, half the price.
Yep.
Same things. I need social media. I need this. I need that. And then once you've gathered all that up, you don't have to do just three people. You can do more than that, but it's up to you. I do more. I do as much as I can. I still do 333 at this stage of my career. I did it with Prairie, free, little something. Now we talking because I prove of myself. I'm in the room now, and the rooms get bigger the more you end up having the value to charge. So now those last three of those, now I can have my prices set up, my entry level price, my medium price, and my premium price, and you just rinse and repeat that all
Yep.
day long.
And what does that number total out to? That 333. Once you're all said and done, you now have what, 9 people doing what for you?
Nine valuable customers, clients, nine testimonials, nine referral partners. And honestly, sometimes those free referral partners, if they're loyal, they'll refer you who knows how much. And I still get referrals. Word of mouth gets out. I got an email before we got on. Hey, I'm gonna make an introduction for you. Can you make this meeting? When I hear those, I don't care what's going on. I'm making it
Right.
because it's who's referring me.
Yep.
Man, listen, I'm making that refer. I'm making that conversation happen, and because I'm loyal to who's loyal to me.
Hmm.
Because if this person goes out of my way, their way to put me in a good position, oh man, I'm good and I'm going to kill it. Yeah, because that goes a long way, man.
Yep.
That goes a long way.
That 9 turned into 50. That 50 turned into 100. That 100 turned into 1,000. So it's
And
just
then a lot of times those little ones don't, I want people to miss this either. Those little ones, I helped one person out not long ago. They're connected to Johnson Space Center. I would have never gotten in that door if I would not have helped that one person out.
yep.
Carry their stuff to the car.
Wow.
And then they spoke for me in a room of other people. And then this person says, hey, come to this event. And then I meet somebody. I didn't know who this person was, but then 6 months later, one of the head of SBA says, "Do you know this person?" I was like, "No. I mean, I know her, but I don't know her." He said, "Oh, no, 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 no. You need to go know this person. I don't know what you're here for." And this is at the Space Center. All these companies here. He's like, "No, go talk to her." And now that talking to her, like, "Oh, this is what you do. This is how." Again,
That's that's why I
it
like
works,
Coach.
man.
That's why I like Coach John. I follow him on Instagram, and he'll go live from these spaces. He'll be like live in these spaces, and he'll just be giving game on there. It really is just reciprocal. Like all these things that you do, the strategy, it puts you in the room. Conversations are had, then it turns into opportunity. Opportunity turns into amplification of what you're doing. Then it turns to referrals. Referrals turn to more business. Like you can just see how everything, if it's a well-oiled machine, everything is just running right and business is just increasing. You're just duplicating your efforts. So wow, this started from the bank account. So I learned a couple of things here just with the bank accounts and the number that the bank uses. And wow, I'm going to go back and watch this episode. But yeah, continue to take notes
We
out
gotta do
there,
a part
everyone.
three. We gotta do a part three.
Part three? No, no, no. We're going to wrap this up.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so
What you got?
we're almost done. So, establishing a DUNS number, UEI. We talked about NAICS code in part one, and then PSC codes.
So your product services codes is a product service code. Really, the same work you do for your state NIGP code, which is your state code, same thing as your NAICS, same thing as your PSC codes. It's just the codes talking about what products and services you offer. Your NAICS code is your North American Industry Classification System. Your NIGP code is your state code. Whatever jurisdiction you're doing the work in has an associated code based on the industry and the services you provide. Clip that, record it, go back and listen to that one little piece over and over and over and over again. Your unique entity identifier number is the new SAM.gov number. So when you're registering your business on SAM.gov, the System of Award Management, you're going to get that UEI number and your CAPES code and MPIN number and all those associated numbers that are identifiers and access codes for your movement within that system. And your DUNS number is your Dun and Bradstreet business number. Technically, when you set up a business, even an LLC, I think even an EIN number, it like automatically pulls you up. So when you get your DUNS number, make sure your DUNS profile is accurate because that can throw you off. Which is why, again, you want to make sure that you're setting all this up right out the gate, and then it all kind of goes out. I haven't seen too many businesses that don't have a DUNS number when they set up. It's like it's already there. You just have to go in there and put your the name of your business in, and it pulls it up. So you don't have to really go out and get a DUNS number. You already have it.
It's interesting. I actually had to go get my DUNS number. I didn't have an existing one because I definitely checked, but
Okay,
I had to go to Dun and Bradstreet to get mine established. Um,
okay, and that can happen. Yeah, that can happen. But you don't have to pay for anything. Now
right.
you can
They'll,
invest
they'll they'll
in
try
their
to sell
business
you on
credit
some
builder.
stuff. They'll don't go what they're trying to sell you, y'all. Just tell them you want a DUNS number.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad, but again, if you don't have the expenses right now, if you're not ready for that right now, and also see whatever institution you're going to pull, whatever bank you're getting your credit from, whatever business credit route you're going to go, sometimes paying for Dun& and Bradstreet doesn't even matter because you need to get your, and that's another thing, but you need to get your business credit together, your experience, and all those kind of things. So Dun& and Bradstreet, yeah, you'll get your vendor lines and all that kind of thing. That's a whole credit class. So we have folks that we do credit with and have good referrals in that space. So y'all can
Awesome.
definitely tap into us for that. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not gonna really focus on or go, deep into the DUNS number and things like that. I'll save that for a tailored tip. But so now we can go into obtaining licenses and permits. This is where I currently am right now, as far as like getting my MBE and other certifications and things like that. But if you want to go into what some of these licenses and permits look like, Coach, and the benefits of it.
So yeah. So when you set up your entity with the Secretary of State, um, a lot of our business opportunities are set up according to who owns the business. And nowadays, you've got diverse supplier entities, you got the Minority Supplier Development Council, the Minority Business Development Agency. You've got so many opportunities to where even federal mandates allow to where 20%, 25%, 30% even of multiple contract awards and even business opportunities are set aside and earmarked for minority business enterprises. And I'm using that as just a run of the mill general term, an MBE. Texas as a hub certification. City of Houston, you got your women owned, your veteran owned. So all those classifications we break down on our channel. So definitely check those out. But make certain, whomever you are, if you're not a white male, everybody else needs to be credentialed as who owns 51% of the business. Period. If you don't have it, you're considered a white male on paper. You're going to go into a procurement form. You're going to go into some meeting somewhere, and they're going to ask you, are you certified as who you are? Who owns 51% of that business? And if you're not certified, it will take you 90 days to 6 months to get certified. And there goes out the window opportunities. And I've seen it happen time over time over time. Uh, I can't say the industry because it'll let me it'll let it out who I'm talking about. But I had procurement officers say, "Hey, I have this contract for you," and they can't get it. Not certified, and it takes joint members, Tri County Black Chamber, etc. They can help you with that. We can help you with that. We do it. Suzanne and Siobhan do it. But the importance of it is so important. Not just getting contract opportunities, but getting registered and being on the list because we may have 1,000 black-owned businesses, 2,000 women-owned, black-owned businesses, Latino-owned businesses. If you're not registered and certified, then they know you exist.
Right.
Well, those programs don't work. They don't work because no one signs up for them. And they take them away, or they restrict them, like what's going on in some instances. If you're not accounted for, if you're not going to do business fully, but there's so many of us that if we were registered could take advantage of more opportunities in that space. So when the argument comes up about DEI or diversity, equity, or supply diversity, and the opportunities are flooding the city of Houston right now, and a lot of what's holding us back because we don't have the right paperwork,
Hmm.
that shouldn't be the case.
Okay, so let me see. And these are, hold on, give me 1 second.
Mhm.
So, what is the best way of getting this? Because I know with me personally, um, it was tough finding, I guess, a good resource as far as like where to get that certification. I got the answer now as far as like my local chamber of commerce, but the main question I had for everyone then was, okay, where do I get this certification that's looked at by all entities, government agency, state agency, city agency? And it's never really getting a clear answer because like, oh, if you get it from here, then that's only looked at the city level. So can you just talk about that as far as like what certifications is looked at where it's like you just get one certification that's looked at all across the board?
Got you. The thing about it is this.
And then also people have to change states, like if that carries over to different states as well, then the state you
Got you.
registered in.
Got it. So twofold question. Got it. Great question. Actually, great. Opportunities are brought about by the jurisdiction of who's bringing it about. So if it's a federal opportunity, right, on the federal level, um, you want to be registered with sam.gov and then go about setting your business up about who owns the business. Period. That way, all the federal jurisdiction opportunities you're there for. We're in Texas, for example, or Louisiana, Florida, California, whomever. You want to register that business as an MBE, minority business enterprise, and however they call it in the state. So that's state jurisdiction. Then you've got city jurisdiction, and most oftentimes the city in the counties or the city and the parishes work together. Okay, perfect example. Sam.gov federal, state of Texas is a hub state. Okay, I think Louisiana is a small business enterprise state. So you register with the state, and then whatever city you're in, there is an overarching body. For example, in Houston, there's a city of Houston and there's Metro. Both of those certifications have power embodied to them. If you're Metro certified, any business you want to do in the city of Houston, Harris County, Fort Bend County, you're good because it kind of grandfathers you in, right?
Okay.
That's fine, totally fine. Whatever city you're in, just make sure you're covering those areas. And then last but not least, make sure on the private side, you're at least certified or registered with the Minority Supplier Development Council. MSDC covers all your Fortune 500 companies, all that jurisdiction. So if you got that covered, you're good. Now you don't have to worry about where to go, who's not what, because everything in business is done by jurisdiction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last cherry on top is make sure you're registered as a vendor with the agencies you want to work with. Okay, that's like your passport to get in the door. That's your ticket to the concert. You have a driver's license to drive around, but how do you get into the concert? You need a ticket.
Right.
So depending on what vendor you're going to go to, again, it's just paperwork, just paperwork. So there's no one fell swoop. Get them all. That's why we offer a service where it's a bundle, and we do all the certs and the vendor registrations for our clients. SBA is probably going to be your best bet if you want to go the route that's more free complimentary or free taxpayer dollars to where the SBA can show you who does what where locally for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you move from one state to another, get with your attorney, and your accountant to make sure that you're transferring that entity over, or you do a satellite office or whatever. And definitely still register that entity in that state the same way you do any other. Get with the Secretary of State, they'll tell you how to move it and then how to register, same thing.
Okay.
Just
If I,
go according to, yeah, that's it.
if I understand correctly, so you're registering twice, two different places for the certifications. Did I hear
If
that
you want to do
correctly?
business in those states, yes. So, like if I'm in Florida and I'm done in the state of Florida, city of Jacksonville, the county, and I want to move my entity to Texas, but I'm still doing business in Florida, now I got two locations. My Florida certification doesn't affect me in Texas. Okay, Harris County, City of Houston, like who are you? That's great, you got a business here, but if you're not certified as an MBE here, no. Now your SAM.gov covers you because it's federal. Doesn't matter where you're at.
Got it.
But you want to make sure that you're in the jurisdiction, you're doing work, you're paying taxes, you're looking to do work with the City of Houston or any of those bodies. You should be registered as a small business enterprise, an MBE, WOSB, veteran-owned services able veteran, whatever you are. Get the paperwork, get it done, submit it. Cool.
Okay. Awesome. So, anything else regarding licenses and permits?
Uh, I don't know what to say this on the podcast. Um, I will because this is a podcast.
Yeah, go at it,
Um,
brother.
quit whining about the paperwork and get it done. There's a lot of people that I meet. I love y'all. I really do. Don't take this wrong way. They want government contracts. They want so many of these things, but you'll be faster to attend a networking event with wine and drinks and partying instead of sitting down and filling out some paperwork. Because it doesn't take that long to fill out. It doesn't. So our priorities are jacked up.
Right.
So don't say you want something and you're not following up to get it. I mean, I even have to take time away to get my birth certificate done. This and that. And Siobhan's on me all the time. So shout out to her. So I totally get it. I totally get it. But if you don't manage your time correctly to get the things you say you want, and then the regret sets in because you don't sit down long enough to do it. So don't attend maybe one after hours event or whatever and get the paperwork done. That's all. I mean, that's what stops so many small businesses from being successful is you're not doing the paperwork and or prioritizing your time on let me go to this event in the city compared to this wine and dine. And I watch people's Instagram stories. I see it all the time. So it's not like you don't have time, you're not prioritizing time correctly. So we
Right.
can do this thing all day long about obtaining licenses and permits. Why don't you just obtain a little bit more discipline? And I'm saying it from someone who I still work on that. But we can't whine about not getting the opportunities when it's right in our faces and you're letting paperwork slow you up. That's not excellence, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Goes back to intentionality again, because what I did was I set aside days or a day to get that done. It's just like, okay, today is going to be an admin day. I have admin days where it's like it's nothing but emails or running errands, getting paperwork done that I need to get done, going whatever, going to the state, going to the comptroller's office, getting things done. Because it's just like, okay, if this is what's holding me back from getting this, let me just dedicate time to go do this. And then, shout out to my business advisor, Alicia, because she just basically was just like, give me this, give me this, give me this. I'm gonna go file this paperwork for you. So
Shout
even
out to
better
Alicia.
if, yeah, even better if you have somebody that's knowledgeable or professional in that area that can do that for you. But still, that's going to require time because they're going to need documents and documents and documents, and you need to make sure that
Hmm.
you. So it goes back to this little thing, the flash drive. It goes back to that thing that you have all your documents and you just quickly can resource those, reference those things and get them out. Um, this really might not be on topic, but commercial insurance, because we're talking about licenses and
Mm.
permits. Because I deal with that being a video production company, an AV production company. We deal with heavy equipment, bringing equipment into different facilities. So this might not be applicable to everybody, but what about commercial insurances? What would you say, just like a little side piece on that?
Definitely look at
Because
getting it just like you.
a lot of people don't talk about commercial insurance also, and it's just like when you get jobs, certain contracted jobs, you go into a space, there's requirements you have to have that's like OSHA compliant and things like that, or compliant with the building facilities and things like that. So
Yeah, errors in admission insurance, right? Insurance that fits what your business is doing. We run into this a lot, especially with young contractors, young engineers, or whatever space, insurance and bonding as well. Bonding is something we don't talk about a lot. Shout out to Port of Houston's Opportunity U program with their supply diversity program and their equity department. They teach that. I think last week, not this week in particular, but last week, they had an insurance bonding company come by and they talked all about that. Those are the little things that, especially if you're in construction, real estate, development, things of that nature, where you need some type of bonding or a bonding company to help you with that insurance. Well, I'm sorry, bonding is bonding, insurance is insurance. So please look into that.
Yep.
And again, who's better to help you with that for free? Your local SBA office. Tap in with those guys. Here's my industry. Do I need to be bonded? Or what type of insurance do I need? And there's people that attend these meetings who run insurance companies. Noemi Garcia does insurance. There's a few people that I know. She's a client of ours. She does insurance. And they know who does the bonding. So attending those meetings and those sessions bring everything that you need. Because there will be a session, trust me. Google SBA bonding presentation, SBA insurance presentation, and something will come up on YouTube that discusses from a previous meeting. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's really important that you brought that up. Seriously, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur starting a business, you have to look at everything, everything when setting up your business because these things that you don't know about, this knowledge is power. So it's just like these things you don't know about, they are costly. Um, when you're met at the door with, oh, do you have this? Excuse me, do I have what? Yeah, you got to have this requirement. You got to have this insurance to even get in this facility with this equipment. And it's just like, oh, no, I don't have it. And it's just like, then your project starts in like 2 hours or an hour. So then it's just like, so what do you do? So it's just like a lot of things you got to consider as an entrepreneur and your industry, depending on what business you do. So research
Oh,
everything,
that's good.
y'all. You like from top down, bottom to top. Research everything. So
Let me
next,
add this
oh yeah,
because
go ahead.
let me add this real quick because I want you even put this clip out. Um, People will and have often we try to shortcut too many things. We try to shortcut the business plan. You know, when you get that insurance and the bonding, especially the bonding, business plan is one of them, financial performance one of them. Going after certain SBA loans, certain opportunities, a business plan is something I hear too often, and I even get shut down for it. Oh, well, the one pager is good. You only need a 1 or 2 page business plan. In a real business plan, the questionnaire that you answer, it covers all that. It covers the bonding and it makes you research certain things when you're attending SBA events and you show up with that questionnaire and you're filling it out. They want to take you more seriously, and then we wonder why we're not taken seriously because we're trying to shortcut stuff. So for all the people that take shots at their long business plan, I really would appreciate if you stop it because yes, a one-page plan can be. I really do. I mean, because you're not in the spaces that I'm in and so many other people are in. A one-page plan is cool because sometimes people ask for that. They want a short, condensed version of what the longer plan is. But the
Mm-hmm.
longer plan is what you build your SOPs off of. You mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Your SOPs and systems are built off of the longer plan that covers all the little minutia in between.
Mm-hmm.
That takes the stress off of you trying to figure this thing out in the first place. So stop trying to shortcut this stuff and just do what's mandatory and necessary in business. Increase your business acumen. Stop trying to shortcut the necessary, and you'll be okay.
I think we went into this on episode one. So story time, brief story. When you when you try to take shortcuts, it hurts you. When you do everything that's required of you or asked of you, it actually helps you. And here's the story I want to share. Actually, went after a contract in the state of Arizona. This was the first contract I pursued out of the state of Texas. It was for a virtual event for an educational institution. It was a 1 year contract, included 3 huge events all throughout the year. It was a good dollar amount also. Long story short, they had a ton of requirements, just a solicitation. The solicitation was like 50 pages long. They were very specific as far as like what they wanted. They wanted to know who is in your company, what everybody's position is, what the chain of command is, who will be communicating with who, what's the process, like once the contract is signed, what are the next steps. They wanted to know everything within my company. Long story shorter, ultimately, I did not complete it in time because it literally took me 5, 6 days because I literally found out about the opportunity a week before its closing date. So I found out about it late. So I tried to hurry up and jump on it. Ultimately, I wasn't able to get it in time, so I missed the opportunity. But even just filling out all of those requirements, because of course I have an internal team, I have my internal processes, but there were some things I didn't have that I had to go research and sort out and figure out within my own company. So even though I did not get the opportunity, what that did in turn, it basically created my own company overview. By filling out those requirements and them forcing me to like find those things out, listing a chain of command and da 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 da, and that essentially made my company overview. That is now in the manual of my company. Now it's like in my operating procedures now, as far as like my company. So when I bring on new employees or contractors, it's just like they now have this company overviews that shows a breakdown of everybody's position, what the line of communication is, what this person's job is, who they communicate with, the line of communication goes down, this is who it goes up to. So by you doing all of this paperwork, and you might think it's long or this is too many pages, what that does is if you don't have that stuff together, it actually helps you structure your business, your own organization better. And that, I use this story a lot because just like, even in doing that, I was just like, I was looking at it as a loss at first, like, golly, I didn't even get this. I wasn't able to submit it in, but then I just looked at what I had and I was like, oh, let me just make a few tweaks here. Look, I got a 15-page company overview that it shows the whole internal structure of my company. So that's in essence what that solicitation, it forced me to do while getting those requirements done. It's just like it forced me to have structure within, more structure within my company. So, but you taking shortcuts, it's not only gonna not get you the opportunity, but you're just going to keep missing more opportunities because you're not going to be properly structured. You're not going to be organized within your own company. So I just want to share that because you definitely popped that up in my head. So
You gotta
next,
have.
but yes, so next we're creating our professional business website email. I know you're probably going to go off on this because I'm going to go off on this. I ain't going to go off on a tangent, but I'm going to just off a little
No, no,
tidbit.
no. Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
just, I mean, Google Suite is good because you can put a .com behind that in that Gmail, software, and within that Google software, and that's fine. I have no problem with someone having I actually like you to do Google My Business. If it's going to be Wix, Shopify, it's fine. Shopify is great, ton of plugins. Sometimes I wish I'd even gone with it, but just make sure it's professional because you will walk in any room, and I'll be real succinct with this because I know our time is getting short, but you can't expect people to take you seriously as a business owner. Get out of your feelings and get this elitist, I'm supposed to be treated a certain way out of the way when you walk around with a Gmail or a Yahoo. Now, I do have Gmail. I've got my .com and I've got a .ai. So it depends on what you're doing, where you're going. But you walk into a door, into a room, and you want to be treated professionally, bank or otherwise. You know, uh, J. Austin Enterprises or Austin Business Strategies. Hello, my name. And that .com behind it means something.
Mm-hmm.
There's an air of legitimacy there that you have to have. .org, okay, .co, just all the professional titles that you want to have. Just be careful with that Yahoo and Hotmail and Gmail. It ain't working no more.
Ooh-wee.
Stop it.
Definitely don't do the Hotmail. And I can talk from experience, but yes, definitely have a website because I know starting out, I used to use my social medias. People filling out application for credentials, and people's like, "Where's your business website?" I'm like, "Oh, I give them my Facebook business page or something like that." And it's like got so many rejections, and at that time didn't know why. But yeah, I was just using my social media because I didn't have a website. But once again, as I got, as I matured, definitely got a professional website. I got a personal professional website for my personal brand. Then, of course, I got one for my company. And with those, depending on what firm you go with or what website you go, you should receive a email that comes with that. So my website, my business website is amazing.com. My business email is info@amazing.com. So even with my website, it's colinhardeman.com. I have a email contact@colinhardeman.com. So those are examples of professional emails that should be referenced with your website. Should be an
Hmm.
info, should be a contact or admin. And like Coach John said, not a Gmail, not a Hotmail. Hotmail is the most unattractive thing. That's like, it'll just get you tossed out the room if you even got in the room in the first place. So,
Exactly. And one last little piece on that professionalism, right? Put your name, your business address, that contact information, that business phone number, and that email on a business card. Now, to some of my young folks, I'm gonna get and have a digital card. It's totally fine.
yep.
You can tap the thing, blah blah blah. But some people, and I found that when people are very visual, oh, they throw business cards away. That, again, there's another reason not to get something. Small story. I was in a format, and this younger gentleman, he was like an influencer. He's got this thing going on, and I won't even remotely say his name, but I don't want to slander anything. But younger, so he was knocking the business card. Oh, you're too old. You shouldn't be using business cards no more. People throw them away. Whatever. I'm like, well, no, you want to present yourself as such. You may not need it, but don't knock somebody else for trying to go after it just because you don't want to. And in the same conversation, he mentioned one of the biggest deals he ever did was a move that he made off of a business card that he gotten from someone. And I said, well, how can you be so contradictory that you don't want it, but you got one of your biggest transactions off of calling someone and sending them a nice little, it was like one of those edible arrangement things
Hmm.
because they had conversations. This person knew what they liked and sent them the edible arrangement, blah blah blah. Followed up via the business card, everything. So let's not be so smart that we are not smart to say those types of things because if they throw the business card away, they throw it away. But I have stacks of cards, and on my card, I'll write where I met you, the date on it. So when I respond back to you, I have something to reference. And I'll be honest, these digital cards are great, but how do I know when I met you and how I met you, and does it pop up in my phone that way? But that card does, and and I can send it to my staff. I'll send pictures to Kendra. Hey, I met so and so here. I can send a voice text to this person. I mean, about this person. So there's so much the card does, and it does. You never know who you're dealing with.
Right.
So you may not like it. So I have both. I have the digital and I have the printed card with my information on there, so they can reference me because who knows? They may want to pass by and say hi one day. May want to Google Map me, whatever. People do an array of things regarding due diligence. So make sure you're above board and give them what you need. Give them what
Absolutely.
they need.
I have my QR code on a titanium card. Also, I had an engineer friend make it. But yeah, people are so impressed by that when they can just scan it and puts all my business information in their contacts on their phone. So speaking
Definitely.
of Google, so build out a business profile on Google My Business once you have a solid address and business registered with the Secretary of State, etc. So just talk about
Yep.
that Google My Business profile. Is this 411 or like listing yourself on Google Maps and things like that?
Well, it's everything Google. Everything Google touches, everything that you can pull down from Google Analytics will put you in position to be Googleable. People can find you there. It's a hard, yeah, oh yeah, it's a hard address. I don't say it's better than Yelp or anything like that, but putting your website and making sure you're Google optimized, your SEO is optimized. Having Google My Business there. Once you set up the address and you go to Google My Business, it'll let you halfway register. It'll send you out a little pamphlet. I mean, a little sheet, if you will. It's got the secured envelope, if you will. You tear it open. There's a code inside. You put the code in Google My Business, and then it fully verifies you. Again, make sure that's your address for a minute because it's hard to change it once you get into it. Trust me, I've done that myself.
Right.
Um, but having a Google My Business allows you to go through SEO optimization even better, helps your web developer or whoever does your website and all that. Social media, it just helps tremendously. And going through Google Analytics, you can see everything. You can post on Google like you do Instagram and LinkedIn and things of that nature. So it's a wonderful thing to have. I need to post on Google more than I'm even saying it. But yeah, Google is a wonderful thing to have. Google My Business is awesome.
I can't tell you, this is the geeking out in me, but it's like I occasionally do this where it's like I'll go to Google Maps and I'll type in the name of my company and just to see my company type come up come up on Google Maps. It's just like I get real giddy when I see that. but
I'm about to do the same thing myself.
but yeah, that's just a cool feeling once your business is legitimately registered on Google Maps. So it's just like it's a destination. People can set there you go,
Yep,
right
the
there.
office, and it's funny because the office even pops up.
Look at that.
Uh-huh.
Put it closer to the screen there so people can see it. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
See, he
So you
got
see the
pictures.
office comes up. Yeah, pictures is where I'm at. I'm telling you.
Exactly.
And I can even you can even spin around and show you where the hello.
Wow.
For the camera.
So
You can
yeah,
see where the office is. It's a real
that's
office.
very cool. Very
Uh,
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
had
let's.
more people do that, and yeah, and they're like, "Oh, you're there. I can see where you're at. Can I come visit you, or can we stop by?" I said, "No, can't just pop in, but you know where I'm at. You can go down to the first floor and see the name on the registry, and then you tell them to set up a meeting with your staff, and they email Kendra or they book a consultation, which is the best way to do it because I'm here and there and everywhere, and only consultations pop up on my schedule. So when you have a system like that, it
Mhm.
works.
Yep. So build out that Google profile, y'all. Build out the business Google profile. So just
Yes, sir.
last couple of points here. So invest in bookkeeping software, i.e., QuickBooks. There's others out there.
For sure.
It's pretty self-explanatory,
Hmm.
but what would you like to say on that, Coach?
Get it. I don't like to overemphasize things that are super simple. Get it, get it, get it, get it. I like how it integrates with your bank account. I'm learning more about it, especially having Kendra on my team as my right hand. She helps with so much
Hmm.
things that I used to do on my own, or when you don't have the right people, doing your taxes and just the simple things.
Yep.
Having that QuickBook integration, man, is insane. Going from like a Google suite to a Microsoft Office suite, just things of that nature. But having that QuickBooks, man, is paramount.
Absolutely.
Can't underestimate that. Hmm.
I currently use QuickBooks for invoicing, timekeeping, um, payroll, and once again, my bookkeeper has access to that. She can give my CPA access to that. So everything is categorized like it does mileage. Like QuickBooks is really just a all-in-one, very simplistic. So once again, if you can't afford a CPA or a bookkeeper, it's very simplistic to where you can do it yourself. But you just got to stay
Yep,
on top of it and categorize everything. But once again, you
exactly.
should. There's a fine line we've been describing all day. It's like you're separating personal from business. They are not crossing over. So
Yeah, please don't commingle.
please, yes. And I'm gonna bring it all to a head at the end. But this is the last point here: is government contracting, register with SAM. So I think you already went into that, but just
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where you want to start, honestly. There's even state officials that'll even ask you, "Are you registered in SAM?" Because you have to go through certain things and provide certain documentation to finish with SAM.gov and get your case code and get the MPIN, and stay up to date with that. Right. So people see that just like with the City of Houston certification and registration, there's a certain level of documentation you have to provide that when you're done with that, it's like a college degree. It shows you finished something. It shows that you're in the system now. Now we can really do business together. If you haven't done that, oftentimes people will ask and wonder, why not? Why haven't you? And if not, go ahead and get it done and come back. You know.
mhm.
So
So
yes, sir.
just with the steps we covered, we're all finished. But what you will come to find out is there are a lot of parallels with your business and your personal life. Because when you have a home address, you have somewhere you live. Your business needs its own address. That's the business address. When you have an EIN number, you have a social security number. Your EIN is like your business's social security number. We didn't get into a capability statement, but capability statement, you have a resume. Like when you go apply for jobs and things like that in your personal life, you have a capability statement. Your capability is your business's resume. It lists everything that you've done. It references your NAICS codes. It shows what clients you've worked with. What everything you do is your resume. It's basically like at a glance, so people can see it. One page what your business all does. Um, so then you have a personal account. You have a business account. So it's like there's no need to commingle things or cross over. It's just like keep your personal separate from your business. Like they're their own
Exactly.
entities. So it's just like look at it as another person. You don't need to cross over into its own entity. It has its own address. It has its own resume. That's why
Hmm.
it's important to be intentional and do the work, do all the hard work, go get this paperwork, set up things correctly. Make sure you are establishing yourself correctly because it's going to save you a lot of heartache and set you up for success at the same time. But, Coach, anything you want to leave us with? I did ask you, I'll wait till you finish your last comment and then I'll get into what I'm going to say next. But
Okay, no, no. I mean, I think we covered a lot. We
Okay,
covered
yeah.
a ton in this period of time. I think almost gave them like 2 hours of good stuff, which is rare.
Yes.
So take it, chop it up, get with it. It's a lot of a good one-on-one space. You know, I love it. So I
Absolutely.
would tell people, when you're dealing with people like Colin and myself, right? This is the free game. So now when you want to take it a step further and like, hey, okay, I want to get with you. There's the our websites, bankready.ai, you click services, you click the consultation link, and that's how we can get together. What I'm doing after this has already been scheduled on my calendar for my day and in personal time, et cetera, et cetera. Um, take that step of action. Don't do the DMs because again, we want to stay
Yeah.
professional in everything we do. Everything we do. So don't DM. How can I know? Because that tells me you're not doing any research. You're not reading. You're not looking these videos over and taking the time. And you also want to realize, I guess, as I wrap up, is that people need to understand the rules of engagement when engaging with an executive, a CEO, a business owner. You train people how to treat you, but in reverse, you are training yourself how to treat other people.
Mm.
So if you want to deal with someone, send them an email,
Bars.
a nice email. I saw you so and so, this, whatever. Introduce yourself. My name is so and so with so and so business, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it in a DM and don't, because you'll look spammy and I'll block you and everybody else will block you. But if you send someone a nice email and then you go through their website, I would rather someone ask me a question of, hey, I went through your website, your IG, your LinkedIn, and I have this question now. If most people I delete that, how do I get time with you? That means you didn't research anything.
Mm.
You didn't click services and see that there's a consultation link there.
Told on yourself.
That's the most unprofessional thing in the world. So act accordingly, I would say to everybody, and this may take people by whatever. That's not the point. Because when you're in these rooms that I'm in, I'd rather you hear it from me and from Colin than you get in a room like what you're about to get into, and you can. There's a regret from certain types of embarrassment you can't bounce back from.
Right.
You just can't.
Oof.
And you get into a room, you have to practice these things of decorum and professionalism. And look, I really got a, this is a baseball jersey with my logo on it, but I can still be very professional like I was yesterday with a three-piece suit on. Doesn't matter. How you handle yourself in a business environment should be
Mm-hmm.
very easy, lackadaisical, but cool, but cordial. And there's a way you approach people, etc. I'm not going to approach the president of A&M by sending her a DM and saying, "How can I get on your schedule?"
Not gonna happen. Right. Thank
I'll
you,
I'll I'll leave it I'll leave it at that.
Coach. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to drop some serious
Anytime.
gems. Like I said, I really am gonna watch this episode again, um, and then also, since we did section this out to part two, I know I did ask you what's your favorite book. That was Powernomics. So if you could, we'll give them a 2 for 1. Do you have another book our future fellow entrepreneurs can utilize or
Yeah,
read?
yeah. But outliers, outliers. I've been recommending this book a lot. No, why I had a brain freeze for a second. But Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. Outliers is what I think every small business owner should read. And it's funny because the mentor, colleague, friend that I visited at the Johnson Space Center, that book's on her shelf too.
Ah,
When I mentioned this, she said, "Oh, look, it's right there." So
yeah.
it's something about that 10,000 hours creating a subject matter expert. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the threshold. So that's 10,000 hours of not just being at your job all day long. No, because if you do 8 hours a day times 40, it'll give you a misinterpretation of what it means. As a subject matter expert, you have to have 10,000 hours of focus, concern time on that task. So if you work 18 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day, for example, you may only spend 3 or 4 hours of focus just on it time.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 hours of that makes you a subject matter expert. So as small business owners, that should be our goal. Also,
Interesting.
whoever you're getting information from and whoever you're working with should also, if they're mentoring you or teaching you, or if you're following them on social media, have you gotten your 10,000 hours plus in to be able to in turn teach me as a guru or as a subject matter expert, LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever? You want to look and think about that and how much time has this person put into this industry
Right.
to be considered an expert to then turn around and teach. Because until you hit 10,000 hours, you can't teach, Colin.
Because we got a lot of
You
experts
shouldn't be
running.
teaching.
We got a lot of experts running around today, don't we, Coach?
Yeah, with less than
Expert.
10,000 hours, less than 5,000 hours. And I listen to people's stories and I'm like, you only been doing this for 2 years, but you no, that don't add up. And respectfully, we need to start raising the threshold
Mm,
on who can do what.
right.
Period. And if you haven't hit that 10,000 hours, start working on it. That's for
So,
everybody. And then really the point I want to go in, past the guru. You want to be such a goat in your market. When you hit that 10,000 hours plus,
mm,
there's a confidence you get of I put this time in and I've really gotten it. Let me go in for more. And you really hone that skill in. That iron sharpens iron is that time too.
yep.
Right? Colin and I can respect each other on that time scale and others. Right. So when you're in a room and you own it because you put that time in.
Hmm.
And that's highly respected by the professionals that you want to pay you top dollar.
Right.
So I would say focus on that. Read that book Outliers, study it, break it apart. It's a simple read, but it's a powerful read.
And that is going to be linked in the description. So just check the links. Also, I will check the community tab as well because I will be putting that revised presentation, the basics to starting a business, with all the information we discussed today, with those links in there as well. That will be in the community tab. But make sure y'all go back and look at the other episodes too. Make sure you watch part one in its entirety. Watch episode one. Watch the introduction because all these resources, advice, free game, cheat codes are all in these episodes. So if you did not watch it, make sure you go back and watch those things. So according to the Small Business Administration, about 20% of small businesses fail within their first year, 30% fail within the second year, and 50% fail after 5 years in business. The tips, resources, and advice we provide on this podcast will ensure that you are not one of those statistics. Hopefully, you are out there taking notes. Until next time, we're outie.